the only show that's 3 dimensions away from Alien being called In Space No One Can Hear You Scream. I'm your host, 3D Jake, and today we're looking at Alien, released in 1979. Alien is directed by Ridley Scott and is written by Dan O'Brien and Ronald Shust and stars Tom Skerritt, Sigourney Weaver, Veronica Cartwright, Harry Dean Stanton, John Hurt, Ian Holm, Yaphet Khatun. The movie is essentially about some space truckers that are basically from work for the Yutani Weyland Corporation, and they go basically get a distress call, and so they're on their way home, and then of course they get a distress call and they go check it out, and then once a disastrous thing happens to one of their crew, and then of course one of their crew is killed by this disastrous event, they have to go and hunt down this alien parasite that ripped out of their chest of one of their crew and is hunting them all one by one. The movie is essentially a horror film in space. That's the way it's been described. In fact, the poster even says, "In space, no one can hear you scream." I will say, when I was a kid, I never liked this movie because I always thought it was just boring. And I say that now as an adult. Like, I'm a huge Alien fan. I mean, look at all that stuff back there. Alien, 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 I'm a huge Alien fan, okay? And I will say, as an adult, I really like this movie a lot more now. Because as a kid, I just felt like it was so boring. Where I was like, all they're doing is just they're talking, they're sitting, they're walking around, they're just doing nothing. It's called Alien. The alien hasn't showed up because on my mindset as a kid growing up in the '90s, I always assumed Alien, it was gonna be like, oh yeah, like there's this like it's gonna be like Leprechaun or Chucky or something where the alien, you see the alien from the beginning of the movie, like, oh, the first 5 minutes of the movie the alien is created, and then the next 30 minutes and then the next half hour is them trying to kill the alien, and killing them all one by one. Instead, it's like it slowly builds, and I would say it's a masterclass movie where the alien slowly builds to the story, and where it starts out introduces these characters, you get to know these characters. And then, of course, it starts taking them out one by one to where you feel bad when they go, and it doesn't just sit there. It isn't if this was essentially a kill count for, Dead Meat's channel, I would assume, it would be a long kill count and it would be which I've not checked this out, so I don't know. But I'm sure it would not have many, deaths every few seconds because their deaths are pretty, dragged out because it gives you room to breathe. This movie does not just sit there and give you oh my god, 10, it gives you 100 crew members and then every 5 seconds a crew member is getting gutted. No, instead it's you're getting to know these characters. They're just waking up from hypersleep. They're getting to know each other, and they have friendships and relationships and all this stuff, and they're growing to talking to each other and they're friends. And then of course they all start to, and then of course once they get on this alien planet and then the parasite infects one of them, then they start playing paranoia of who the alien, where the alien is, and how do we kill it. And then it starts turning into a distress situation where one of them is even revealed to be a robot, which to me, I always thought that came out of left field. To me, I was like, the first, because it's the whole movie you're just sitting there they're just talking and everything, and all of a sudden he just comes out and starts trying to kill Ripley, and you're just like, what? I remember seeing this as a kid, because Alien versus Predators was coming out, and I had never seen Alien in the movies, any of the movies. So my aunt let me borrow the copy of Alien, and my other aunt had Predator. I watched Predator, loving Predator. I watched Alien, and I nearly fell asleep. Because, I will admit, this movie, it just was not for me. And I will admit, I'm sure there are people out there that do not like Alien. They said, I don't like Alien, Aliens, or Alien 3, or any of the Alien movies. Because it's not really, I would say it's more of an art house horror film. It's not really a movie that you're going to love. If you're going into this movie thinking this is going to be a action film, I would say Predator is a straight up action movie with gore and everything else. Aliens is more of a art house horror film where it shows you the visuals. It's really well shot, well scored. It's a storytelling. It's the critic movie per se. It's not gonna be a movie where if you're gonna go on this expecting gore and blood and guts, this is not your movie. And I remember I had that issue where because I was a kid, you would think that. So when I went in to see this movie, I was kind of let down. But then I went and saw Prometheus in 2012, and I loved that movie. And then someone pointed out to me, later on, like the same problems that you had in Alien, you loved in Prometheus, and I went back and revisited Alien, and I loved it. I'm like, you're right, because a lot of people were complaining in Prometheus that it's slow paced, and the really the big threat of the movie doesn't even happen until the third act, and there's just so much going on, and I'm just like, you're right. Like, it's like the Prometheus kind of is the same as Alien, which again is really right by Ridley Scott. So it does have those similarities of you get to build these characters up and then you put them in this terrifying situation to where they end up having to turn on each other and they're trying to kill this entity and then this parasite's killing them off. And I think that's what's so interesting about this and Prometheus. And I will say I will say the performances are well done from each person. I mean, I do like the one thing I really, really liked about the performances is every character has their moment. And the first character, the first character it introduces is John Hurt's character, who would later go on to get, become the chest burster, because it wants you to show you build this character up so you like him. So when he dies, and I'm like, that's so clever. The first character it starts with is the first character to die, and then as it casually goes around, you get to see the other characters. And I believe that I could be wrong, but I believe every character it goes to is the order of how they'll die in the film. Like to where I think Ellen Ripley dies last, so she doesn't die at all. I mean, but Ellen Ripley is the last one, so she goes to her. I believe that's what it is. I could be wrong, so don't quote me on that. That's what I think. What I saw when I watched it. I'm gonna go. You know what? When I went back, I'm gonna go back and rewatch it again. But I did rewatch it earlier. But I'm just saying I'll go back and recheck that for you. And I really like how you have it's not just like usually if a female's in there she'll be like the sexual object, and I like that both Sigourney Weaver and Veronica Carr are not really the sexual objects of the movie. Like they're there to work and they're not like and I like how it does turn into the final girl for Sigourney Weaver, because I will say when this movie, because the whole movie kind of is like, oh, Tom Skerritt's the lead. He's like like the Kurt Russell in the Thing, where R.J. McCready, where he's like gonna stop to save the day. Instead, and you would even think at the end, oh, he's gonna show up and kill the alien. No, instead it's like it's Sigourney Weaver. Like she is the one. And you would think so she would just be like a throwaway character, and essentially because Sigourney, she doesn't really have much to do in the movie at all. Like she does not have much to do in this movie. And I mean, that's just a fact. I mean, you can watch the movie. She doesn't do much in the movie. I mean, Tom Skerritt has the most things to do in this movie. And I would say maybe like John Hurt, or no, Ian Holmes has the second most things to do in this movie. But because, it's like Tom Skerritt, then Ian Holmes, and then I think John Hurt would be the third because he went to go find the alien ship, and you find the chest burster and all that stuff, the face hugger and then the chest burster with John Hurt. I will say the scene that I thought was really great, like the movie really, I like this, the technology and everything, and I do like whenever the chest burster happens in the movie, like everybody, because it turns out Ridley Scott shot this where he didn't tell anybody this was going to happen but John Hurt, and then John Hurt, and it just like jumped on a table and he started freaking, and all of a sudden it ripped his chest out and the alien comes out and everything. Everybody's freaked the hell out because that's how it happened. Like it was a surprise, and I thought that was so well done. That was a perfect scene, and it just shocks people, and some people haven't seen that movie, and they're like, imagine for the first time watching it, you see that scene, you're like, what the fuck, And I will also say I do like how like the alien, and afterwards they're like into high gear, like when the face hugger happens, I like how it sits there for like a day. You're like, oh my god, what's gonna happen to him? And then when he's fine, they're like, wait there, that's not it. And then all of a sudden the chest burster, you're like, oh, and then like how it starts getting bigger, and then you have the captain, you're like, oh, he's not gonna die, and then he dies, and it turns out if you watch the director's cut by Ridley Scott, he actually didn't die. The alien slimed him, and he literally went up there, and when she went up there, he was there, and he basically was like, kill me, because I guess he basically, the alien, I guess, like ripped out his insides or something and like made the wall with his insides, I guess, because he was just sitting there halfway dead, and then Ridley sets him on fire. I think, and then of course after John Hurt dies and they throw his body out, they have to hunt the alien down. The alien they end up having, then after Tom Skerritt's character gets taken off the board, then they're like, what do we do, and everything. And of course, also Harry Dean Stanton, Harry Dean Stanton, gets taken off the board when his cat, looking for his cat. That shot's so creepy. How well it's shot and done is so creepy. And it just makes you so, when you see, like, you're like, all of a sudden, you don't even know. But now, watching on Blu-ray, oh, the alien's right there. But imagine watching this on VHS for the first time, or in theaters, you see the alien's head rise, like, and just, it's so well done. And I like how, especially, I think the only person's death who I thought was really meaningless was Veronica Cartwright's, because she just dies, kind of, and you're just like, what? I think everybody else, or no, not was it, it was Yaphet. His character just kind of just dies almost off screen in a way. He doesn't die off screen, but like he kind of does, like, in a way it's like where it's like a throwaway death. Versus Veronica Cartwright's, where her character dies, I thought was a great death. John Hurt, John Hurt has the best death of the movie, and I think Ian Holmes, and I like how it just makes Sigourney the final girl, and like how she goes to save the cat and everything, and the cat's in there with her, the alien's in there with her, and she blows up the whole ship for nothing. And you're just like, and I do think that was really cool how she gets that space suit and everything, and then she freezes the alien. That to me was so cool. And you like, one thing I'm like, then in the sequel you find out what happens during the sequel, and I just thought that's what's so well done. This was something that I thought you could easily not make this. Where like nowadays I think people wouldn't appreciate this movie if it came out today, like just like as the not like a franchise, or not just like if this movie from 1970 had just dropped today, I don't think anybody would have watched it as much. I don't think it would have been as big. But I think now, but back then, this was a huge thing because it's like, oh, it's a horror film in space. And I really appreciate this movie. It's a fantastic movie. If I've never seen it, I highly recommend it. If I had to give this movie a grade, I would give it a solid A. Thank you so much.